Today at approximately 2:39 p.m., an adult male subject entered the north screening facility of the Capitol Visitor Center. During routine administrative screening, the individual drew what appeared to be a weapon and pointed it at officers. The officer fired and struck the suspect, who was subsequently treated by medical...
That was Capitol Police Chief Matthew Verderosa speaking on Monday. I'm Roll Call Editor Melinda Henneberger, and this is Roll Call Roundtable. We're going to discuss security in one of the safest spots in the country with Rima Rahman, who covers security on Capitol Hill for us, Alex Rorty, who covered yesterday's incident, and David Hawkins, who wrote about how security worked just as it was supposed to yesterday. So, David, tell us what you mean by that.
Well, what happened was that the suspect in this case, Mr. Larry Dawson, did what the Capitol Police hope will happen, which is that rather than just wander around outside the Capitol, which tourists are free to do, he presented himself at the underground entrance to the Capitol Visitor Center, which was created after September 11th to make sure that tourists are screened more than, by my count, about 250 steps away from where the closest House member or senator has any office. He arrived at this security screening checkpoint, which is really almost, you could call it 4 different stages. You go through these heavy doors, you then present yourself in a magnetometer, you have to empty your bag. It's a lot like going to get on an airport. You go through a magnetometer, then you go through a full body scan, and only then do you go through a second set of doors and are you admitted into the sort of the public areas of the Capitol. And so when he got to this checkpoint, there was no other place for him to go. And this whole incident happened far, far away from where anybody in authority would have been working. Of course, Congress was in recess yesterday, so there were a minimal number of lawmakers around in any case.
Now, the suspect is someone the Capitol Police were aware of.
That's true. His name is Larry Dawson. He's a 66-year-old man from the outskirts of Nashville, Tennessee. And he had come to Washington in October and actually got, at that point, as best as we can tell, he went through all the screenings properly. He went through the screening I just described. He went through a second screening, another magnetometer, which you need to pass through in order to be admitted to the House chamber, and became, very briefly, a spectator during a routine afternoon of debate in the House. He stood up and shouted that he was a prophet of God, caused something of a commotion, which you can watch on C-SPAN. You can link to it. We have it up on our site. And at which point the Capitol Police came and escorted him out. So yes, he was known to the Capitol Police at that point. As I understand it, he was essentially given a court order to not come onto the Capitol grounds again. So if nothing else, he's going to be accused of violating that court order.
When I heard the news yesterday, the first thing I thought was about how it would be surprising if a shooting really were to happen inside the Capitol Visitor Center, since it is such a fortress. Do you think that the public coming to visit feels safe when they do so, Alex? You went up and talked to some of the folks who had been there when this happened.
Well, it was almost surreal because we got news of a potential shooting on the Capitol, and I ran to the Capitol complex to check it out. And when I got there, you saw some of the people had already been ushered out of the Capitol, and almost uniformly, they said they were very calm during all of this. I spoke to one man. He was actually from Cambridge, England. He was visiting with some friends in Maryland, and they had brought not just themselves but their grade school-age sons to the Capitol. And I said, well, look, when you heard the shouting, when you guys were locked in, they were locked into the theater in the Capitol Visitors Complex, were you alarmed? Were you scared? And they said no, actually. We were very impressed by the response from the Capitol Security, from the Capitol Police. It was clear that we were going to be safe because we saw just so many police officers, so many heavily armed police officers all around us, that more than anything, they actually told me they were more just curious what was happening. They weren't close enough that they heard any gunshots, but they did hear plenty of shouting. They were told to shelter in place, and it was about 100 of them who were in this theater, and they were just checking their phones, wondering what was happening. Certainly not an ideal circumstance, but one of the people, funnily enough, told me, they were there to tour of the Capitol, she said, well, they actually got a great tour of the Capitol when they were evacuated out the Senate building because they saw parts of the Capitol they never would have seen otherwise.
gosh.
So she was actually impressed, and then they went and got a coffee from McDonald's. So it was, for what was obviously a very scary scene if you were there, if you were in the Capitol, all the half dozen people I talked to all said that they actually felt safe during all this, and it goes to David's point. I think that the system worked in this place, and I think we should be happy about that, clearly.
And they inspired confidence if no one was panicking. That's impressive. So, Rima, today there were 2 suspicious packages today, Tuesday, in the area of the Capitol. Tell us a little bit about that.
So there were 2 unattended bags that Capitol Police were investigating this morning. One was on the east front of the Capitol, and that was someone's unattended backpack, and that was cleared once the owner was found. And then the second one was at the entrance of the Library of Congress Jefferson building. That was also cleared. Nothing was found on those packages, but there were some street closures this morning that caused a bit of a traffic backup. But I suspect that part of the reason is that police are sort of on heightened security right now, given what happened yesterday.
Are we likely to have more of these in the near future until things get a bit back to normal?
I think so. I think sort of typically what happens after an event like this is people just pay a little bit more attention to things around them, and police are probably a little bit more vigilant than they normally are. Although I would say, being on Capitol Hill, Capitol Police are pretty vigilant people.
They're certainly vigilant in the amount of news that they allow out of the department, so my hat is off to you in covering these folks. So what about reports that what appeared to be a weapon yesterday might have been a BB gun?
Yeah, there's no official word on that yet, but the police chief was very specific when he said that the man was carrying what appeared to be a weapon. And Capitol Police have recovered that weapon, but they have not yet said exactly what he was carrying.
And what shape is the suspect in today?
Well, as of last night, he was in stable but critical condition after surgery, but no word yet today on how he's doing.
Okay. And David, so there's so much. Tell us a little bit about the budget for the Capitol Cops and how that has expanded in recent years, and how they have been able to beef up security, and what we know about that.
Well, the modern era of Capitol security, what I described a few minutes ago about this screening center that is really a full city block or more away from the Capitol proper, the impetus to build that started almost 20 years ago after a mentally disturbed man, a guy named Russell Weston, actually got inside the Capitol within a short flight of stairs from the Speaker's office and essentially around the corner from a House Republican leadership office, and killed 2 police officers in the line of duty, and actually got within a few feet of a member of the Republican leadership, Tom DeLay. It was at that point that I think many members of Congress realized their vulnerability. They have always tried to be balancing the desire to be transparent to their constituents and the desire to be safe, and they concluded that they had that balance a little bit wrong, and that was when not only the Capitol Visitor Center was built, but an enormous ramp up in the size and spending by the Capitol Police began. In fact, since the early 1990s, the Capitol Police budget has gone up 6 times over, even adjusted for inflation 4 times over. And the size of the force has almost doubled. A lot of that has gone to paying the Capitol Police much better, reducing the amount of overtime and increasing their salary and benefits to make it more competitive with other federal law enforcement officers. But much of that is really kept secret. You alluded a minute ago when you said to Rima about their vigilance and not generally being all that chatty about their behavior. I mean, they would say this is the price you pay for keeping the Capitol open is that we have to be somewhat secretive about how we operate. But they have taken that to a relatively emphatic degree when it comes to keeping their own budget secret, how much they spend on weapons, training, hardware. They don't tell us much.
So who oversees that budget, and who does have the details of it?
The way it works is that the Capitol Police submits their budget request to the White House. The White House, by custom, without any review of it at all, sends it back to Congress, and then members of Congress themselves have to appropriate this money. There's a spending bill that is supposed to be enacted every year for the entire legislative branch. The budget for the Capitol Police is about 1/6 of the entire spending on the legislative branch. So Congress gets to review it, but they don't chat too much about it either. And then from day to day, the Capitol Police are overseen by what's called a Capitol Police Board, which are the two sergeants at arms of the one of the House and the one of the Senate, are sort of the main players on this. They are political appointees of the congressional leadership. So there is some congressional oversight for the Capitol Police, but even politicians who generally like to be pretty chatty don't really want to talk too much about how their own security operates.
So they are privy to the details, though, themselves.
They can get the details, whatever details they want. Members of Congress will get told.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for Roll Call Roundtable. Until next time, I'm Melinda Henneberger. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Read us at rollcall.com and download our podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud.